Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Crickets to Cha-Chings podcast. I'm Julie Berninger, and I'm here with Lauren. I'm so excited to have you today. So, Lauren, introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm Lauren Hooper. I live in Raleigh in North Carolina, and I am an artist, an entrepreneur, and I just do a ton of things because I love creativity and I love this world of creating and helping creatives grow their businesses. And so you can find me doing all kinds of different things at any time.
Well, I think a lot of us can relate to that. We like to dabble in different areas. But today, for all of you listening, we're going to talk to Lauren about her entrepreneurship journey. She is a maker and Etsy seller. She owns a photography business that we have personally used to get UGC content created for our Etsy shops and for some of our Etsy sellers in our community. And if you haven't been in on the UGC craze, Lauren will take us through to A to Z of how she gets everything going for that and how you can improve your Etsy listings by having better photography from UGC creators. So, Lauren, let's kick it off. So, you mentioned that you've dabbled in a bunch of things. Where did you start on your entrepreneurship journey? Did it start with the Etsy shop?
Yes and no. So I have 2 degrees in social work. I was a school social worker, and we actually lived overseas for a long time. And when I started school, I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't a fine artist, like I'm not good at drawing and things like that. And so I didn't know what to do. So I switched my major to social work, and then I just kept crafting. I was like in my college bedroom, like making jewelry and stuff. And so after I graduated college, this was a long time ago, eventually came on the scene, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I started an Etsy shop. It was terrible. And that was like 15 years ago. And so, like, right at the beginning of Etsy. But I always just loved it. And I kept making stuff and kept going. And then eventually I had a blog and I was scrapbooking. And then I decided to start an art journaling kind of blog. And it eventually grew into a full business. And so I had an art journaling membership website. And I eventually quit my social work job to do that full time. And then I decided I wanted to host art retreats all over the world because we were living overseas at that point. And so I sold my membership community. I sold it. And so it's still running. And then I started the retreats, and then COVID hit. So they did not last very long, but they were very lovely. And so amidst COVID, we ended up moving back to the States, and I had access to like reliable shipping now. And so then I started what my current Etsy shop is, and I started selling polymer clay earrings. And so that kind of launched me in a totally different direction from being kind of a teacher, online courses that I was still kind of doing in the background during COVID to make money. And I enjoyed them, but I wanted to be making stuff, I wanted that to be what I was spending my time doing. And I fell in love with polymer clay jewelry. And so really that kind of took everything off, and we ended up moving to Raleigh. And so now I own a art studio. So it is part art studio. We have 5 working artists who work out of there, myself included. And then we have a handmade gift shop where we have about 20 local artists who sell their work in the shop in downtown Apex, North Carolina. So I've got the jewelry, I've got the shop, and then I do UGC and really just kind of social media, everything on the side, because through all of these things, social media has been there with me, and I have seen the growth and the connections and all the things that have come from using social media. And so I really like to help creators figure out how to use it well, whether that be through strategy or social media management or UGC. So that kind of brings us all around from the beginning to here.
Wow. So I feel like I just played a game of crafty person bingo. Like I was like making crafts out of their dorm room, like check that off, selling, doing scrapbooking, like all the trends in crafts and in the world, like online courses, you've done it all. So
Yep.
that's some really good varied experience. I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, we met Lauren through a mutual friend, the CEO of my agency. I also have an agency that I run on the side where we help creators create courses and memberships. And our CEO, Taylor, knew Lauren and connected me for UGC purposes. So Lauren, I really only knew that you had the UGC photography side. I didn't realize that you had this breadth of experience. So I can't wait to dive into these different areas today.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, for the makers out there, I want to start with just the earrings before we move on. what is hot in the earring space right now? Like we haven't talked to a pure maker in a while, so I want to hear like what's that been like out there in the Etsy streets.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest, most important things for me is that I continue to do both because I have, a foot in the door on each side. So I understand what's working and why and how to translate it back and forth. Yep. So earrings right now, polymer clay earrings are huge. They are definitely have been a big thing for years. And I have seen so many people start and so many people fall off the wagon because it is hard. It is very saturated. There's a lot of us. But, for me, I've noticed people like weird stuff. The makers that I see that are staying around and the stuff that I sell that I'm most successful for are really wild, vibrant, quirky, colorful, kitschy things. So that's really what people are into right now is really expressing themselves like food is a big trend right now. There's a
Mm.
lot of people making like blueberry earrings or donut earrings, but they look hyper realistic. So that's a really fun thing that's happening in the polymer clay world right now.
I believe it. It's funny because I think earrings have kind of gone two ways. So there's Caitlin Minimalist, who's the number one top seller on Etsy, and her stuff is the tiny gold, really like
Hmm.
minimal thing that we
Hmm.
see. And I know my sister, she bought me earrings recently, and they're the tiniest hoops I've ever seen in my life. Like they practically are stuck on my ears. There's no room for it to really hoop around. But then we have this other side, which is the fun statement. It kind of reminds you of like growing up. You'd see those teachers, really celebrating the holidays with the huge Halloween earrings
Hmm.
or something.
Hmm.
I've wanted to become that person as an adult. I don't. I probably should have more earrings to kind of liven up things. I love the holidays. I love celebrating. So I feel like we've kind of bifurcated here in two different directions, either like the tiny, tiny jewelry or like the really statement personality jewelry. Is that sort of what you see too?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I call my stuff is art teacher earrings, like the Miss Frizzle. That's what my
Yeah.
stuff looks like. It's big and it's funky, like art teachers are wearing them, science teachers are wearing them. And then people who are like, I just want to be fun. I miss the 90s. That was
Mm-hmm.
fun, not the weird clothes trends that are coming back. I'm not quite on board with all of those. But the colorful funkiness is really nice. And yeah, so when I go, I do a lot of markets. And so I see that difference of those like simple gold statement pieces. I guess, is it a statement piece if it's so tiny? But
Mm-hmm.
those simple things. And then, yeah, people are really colorful and fun and playful. And the polymer clay is super, super light. So people can wear really big earrings and it doesn't hurt their ears.
That makes sense. Yeah, because that was always the problem for me with the heavy, heavy earrings. That makes
Hmm.
sense. And I do notice in general, there's kind of this pushback on what was popular a little bit ago. Like the minimalist is still very popular, obviously, but
Hmm.
I feel like this is kind of a pushback on that movement. And similarly, I was seeing on Instagram, Gen Z was making fun of the sad beige millennial mom. I don't know if you've
Uh-huh.
seen all those
Yes.
things,
Uh-huh.
which I have been the beige millennial mom. I have a white room where everything is kind of white because I'm just trying to take down the colors and just relax. But I think this is kind of maybe part of that. Okay, so we've talked about your maker stuff. Now I want to move into the photography, UGC. Does it stand for user generated content? I thought that, but
Yes.
okay. So where did this movement start from? Like why is this a thing? Why are we even knowing what UGC means?
So, I mean, essentially, it was born from, original marketing. When companies 60 years ago started marketing, they would hire an agency to come in to film their content, to create a commercial for them or an ad that would go in the newspaper. And now that we have phones and we have really talented content creators out there, um, we can do it ourselves and we can do it in a more genuine way that actually speaks to the customer, and it's a good deal on both sides if people are charging what they should be. And so companies are able to hire real people because word of mouth is truly still the best way to buy something. Because when you want something, the other day I was looking for a new face moisturizer sunscreen, and so I texted my girls group and I was like, what are you guys using? And I bought whatever they told me to. And so UGC really is that, but on Instagram, on TikTok publicly. And so it changes from having to hire this big full team and come up with this big production to now I can just take this face cream that I really love, and I can film a video of me using it, putting it on in my own real person bedroom and share it to either my account or the company can share it. And now it's real people telling you, this is really how I use this thing. And it makes a huge difference in how brands and people are able to connect with their customers versus stock photos.
That makes sense. And what I love about it as an Etsy seller is when I am hiring a UGC creator, um, giving my customers the chance to see the product in use. And it, like you said, it looks professional, but it looks a little more realistic so they can actually get an idea of how the product would feel in their hands and how they might use it or what it might do for them. And to your point, you know, you can create Instagram or TikTok content where someone is speaking about the product or like showing it in a different lens instead of the usual just here's the earrings and you know they're just in your hands. Like you can kind of get a sense of somebody what their thoughts are on the product too, and they feel like a real person, like your neighbor, not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
random company that you've hired.
Mm-hmm.
So who, when you started out doing this, how did you know how to do this? Did you already have a photography background? Did you take a course? Like, is this a, I noticed UGC is a big trending keyword, so I just don't know like where people are getting started with this.
Yeah, so I mean, it just kind of happened. I like this, I just found that as I began blogging, I think that's where it really started for me. So I was blogging, so I had to take my own photos of whatever project I was doing that day and post those. And so I just began playing around with flat lays because that was, what we were doing 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I just started getting a lot of practice and I really liked it because it felt like an extension of my creativity within the project, because I know a lot of creators are like, I created the thing and now I'm done. But for me, I love figuring out how to set it up and make it look good and make it look engaging and interesting and beautiful and play around with it. And so I enjoy that part of it. And so I just did a lot of it and it just started to get noticed, because I was doing it for my own businesses. And then other makers were asking me how I was doing it and I was sharing. And so I kind of started teaching on how to do it. And it just unraveled from there. I took some online courses a long time ago, on photography and things like that to improve my skills. And then UGC, I kind of just fell into my lap a little bit. I've been doing it for a long time before it was really even called UGC. And then lately, as it has grown in popularity, I went to a conference and met with another creator who was doing it, and she did like a little talk on it, and so that was helpful information. But really for me, it's just come still from word of mouth. I don't do a ton of advertising. I'm not like on TikTok shop or anything like that. TikTok has a creator platform that you can be on, and you can get hired as a UGC creator for all kinds of brands. And Etsy shop, big brands, Etsy shops, anyone can hire these creators. And I'm not on there. It's just kind of word of mouth. And I enjoy that because I like to be able to work with smaller creatives and help them with their Etsy shops. That's what, I'm good at, what I'm comfortable with, and what I really enjoy.
And I think it helps when you have this professional photography make sales too. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know for myself, I was trying to get going with TikTok. I would say this might have been 3 or 4 years ago. This was pretty early, but I would hire people on Upwork to
Mm-hmm.
film the content. This was before UGC was the word
Uh-huh.
UGC. And I just remember like some people were really good and some people were just horrendous. And what I consider horrendous UGC was like they would in the printable space, they would put the printable together in a way that like would make zero sense and the background would make no sense and it just someone looking at it were like, "Huh? Like what is this thing even?" And then someone else would actually think like, "Okay, what is this product?" I know it's a little harder in the printable space probably for someone
Mm-hmm.
that didn't know what printables were. And I think that's why now, while you can get good people on Upwork, I think just working with referrals makes a little bit more sense, like someone that kind of gets what you're doing and why we connected. But yeah, have you had any learnings in that aspect of like, I'm sure your work has improved over the years too. Like, what are some tips if someone was trying to create their own UGC or to work with someone and evaluate their quality? Like, what are some things they should look for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously starting with just their quality, like what are they putting out in the world? Does it look good? Is it interesting to you? And then are they able to translate that to your genre, your niche, whatever you're teaching? And so, there's always going to be like the white background. For Etsy, we just need a white background with your item on top of it, that looks good. That's kind of your basic thing. But then how can we kind of build a world around your product that makes sense for you? So let's say you have movie related printables. I don't want it on a desk with a bunch of crafts. I want it on a desk with movie paraphernalia and popcorn and things like that. And I want it shot in a living room. I want to see people watching TV, those kind of things versus, well, here's just a bunch of white background photos that maybe don't make a lot of sense. And so figuring out, is this person diverse enough that they can figure that out of how to create a world based on your niche?
Yes, and I noticed that with your stuff too. So we've used you for the Etsy shop, but then also you helped us with the Gold City Ventures brand. And we were launching a challenge. It was a 30-day challenge. And so you printed out the challenge tracker, and then you like the video was in the perspective of you filling out the challenge and then taping it to your door in your office. And you could see like all the stuff in your office or wherever you were. And it just made so much sense that it was going to be on the door. Whereas, working with other people, they would just put it on the desk. And it's like, when you're scrolling through Instagram, it's not as interesting, visually
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then it's just kind of like, okay, well, this is any piece of paper on a desk. Like this
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. If you're doing a challenge, you're going to have it up on a wall or a door or whatever, and you're going to be looking at it every day and kind of marking it off. So I appreciate you saying the create it, think about the world that you're creating, because I think a lot of people, they don't think about that. They're just like showing the product in a flat light situation. And that third dimension kind of helps, I think, make it different and also makes sense to the watcher.
For sure. And that's, kind of what goes back to, that's why I like to help other Etsy makers because they're making something similar to what I'm already doing every day. I don't work with beauty brands because that's not something I'm into. I don't have a super aesthetic bathroom where I would be filming and putting on stuff. And I don't have like the cute scrunchie that people wear. That's just not my style. That's not what I do, but I already have a million art supplies. So I can find something that's going to match your creative adjacent brand. So that's important too when you're choosing a UGC creator. There are beauty creators, there are travel creators, there are craft creators, and making sure you're going down the right path for the right type of video and customer that you're trying to bring in.
Yes, the vibe has to be on. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you don't need a perfectly aesthetic audience for what all of us do because
Mm-hmm.
we're at our offices. I did just get my office redone. That's why my background looks like this. So I'm
It
pumped
does
about
look
it.
good. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a journey, but I love it. But before then, and I still have the kids' toys and the random craft projects that I've abandoned and things all around here. So, just like
Mm-hmm.
everyone else's office, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move into the UGC creator. So we talked about obviously digital products. I'm emailing you the file. For physical products for your own, you have them in your house. But when you've worked with other makers, are you working with people that are not local? Do they just like ship you the product? How does it work?
Yeah, they just ship me the product and just kind of let me know what they're looking for. But it always comes out better when you give not complete free reign, but when you give some like, I trust you, be creative. Because, for me, whenever I'm working with a really tight requirements, I get really nervous. Am I doing this exactly right? Is this going to be exactly what they want? Versus like, oh, I have this great idea, because that's what I'm good at, is coming up with new ideas and finding new ways to share your product. And so, yep, you just send whatever you want. And then I will either, if I have something I can use to like kind of build the background, the world, if I need to go buy something or you want to send me anything, so you're like, please use this background, or, these little bits and bobs that I kind of always have in my photos, you can send those and I'll send them back to you.
That makes sense. And so we have this new program called Beyond where we're teaching people how to expand their Etsy shops beyond Etsy. It includes elements like social media or whatever. But one section we talk about UGC, and that's where we've linked out to you and other creators. But what we noticed, because we gave away two people who joined Beyond, we gave away a UGC package, and every single person was like, I don't even know what to ask for. And I realized, oh, I need to tell you what to ask. I forget
Mm-hmm.
if that was on the thread with you or not, but I realized that people don't know to ask for B-roll, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like the number one most important thing that you
Mm-hmm.
need, because yes, there's the listing videos that you want to create and like the marketing videos, but actually you need just like a bunch of b-roll of your product in like various scenarios, or laptops and coffee pouring and tea swirling and whatever the things are. I think, is it ASMR, like the weird sounds at the start
Uh-huh.
of every.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know I had to ask my nanny what that was. But it's like, starting videos with a certain sound that kind of hooks people is how I understand it. Obviously, those little things, I'm packaging them as B-roll, but like they're
Mhm.
really important because when you go to create the actual social media content, you got to splice in some of that. It can't just be like one video. It often is spliced with other videos. So, how would you? I guess if someone wanted to work with a UGC creator, or you receiving directions, tell me more about like what they would have to say in those words to get this B-roll thing.
So, what I want to know in that is who your customer is and what that B roll should look like. It's kind of like being an actor. I don't spend my day sitting at a desk typing, but if you have whatever your product is for someone who works in an office, then I'm going to film myself sitting at a desk, getting a coffee cup, arranging everything on my desk, playing with my keyboard, walking to a meeting, things like that. So some of these things I'm going to stage, I mean, so these aren't real. I don't work in an office, but that's what you want your creator to be able to do. And so you need to think about what world your customer lives in and how to translate that. So I worked with you guys who she had a camping printable, and I am a camper, so she got really lucky in that. Um, she got really lucky in that sense. And so I was able to send her videos of my camper, of us walking around the campground, of the dog playing. So things like that. So she was able to have this exact visual of what it would look like for her camping people, her customers to be like, oh, that's, such a great campsite. And oh, that camper is so cute. And oh, I can't wait to get back to the campground. And so I was able to kind of create that world again for her people so that whenever she shares this B-roll, it's going to immediately connect to the right people versus me just showing a camping printable on a white background.
And that makes sense totally. So pivoting a little bit to the social media aspect of this, because the reason that we're doing this is twofold. So one, Etsy allows you to upload a listing video.
Mhm.
So they say that products that have videos convert more. They always put that little stat up there to try to encourage you to list a video. I'd be curious to know, are you doing horizontal or vertical videos on your Etsy stuff? And do you notice a difference? I guess we'll pause there. We'll ask that
Yeah.
first.
Um, Vertical. I didn't know that you could do horizontal videos.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yes, because they kind of look horizontal when you go to upload them. So I always thought that that was it because especially when people are looking on their phone, that video is going to take over the whole screen on their phone.
I've seen both. I mean, you can upload it to be horizontal, at least at the time that I was doing it, or you can upload it to be vertical too, like a phone version. I mean, people are probably on their phones, right?
Yeah.
So I was just curious for if someone has tested either one. So you're uploading so your earrings, are you videoing them like in the 1920 by 1080 or whatever I
Mhm.
think forget the mobile dimensions. You're using the mobile dimensions.
Yeah, so what I do is I film as I'm doing my Etsy photo shoot. I have a list of the 10 photos that I want to take and then of the videos I take. And so as I'm creating, I'm also doing the, from above view and showing, my process and how I'm creating. And then I take a nice background, my white background photo where I just turn the, you know, earring around so you can see. And then I have a video of me wearing it, kind of showing it tucked behind my hair kind of thing. And then I will splice in, um, my hands making it, and show a little bit of that both because I want that professional look so people can actually see what they're getting. And then I want that B-roll connective, oh, someone actually made these. Oh, look how cute these are with that outfit. I could wear those to brunch.
Okay, so I know Etsy really has been pushing that too. They really want to bring out the maker and the creativity and go back to like what they're originally known for.
Hmm.
So they have been encouraging, in my opinion, people to film the behind the scenes process. So I'm glad that we mentioned this because before we were talking only really about the user customer perspective, but you
Hmm.
also are filming you as the maker as you're
Yes.
doing things.
Mhm.
You're not talking in them though. This is you just like doing stuff. You're not speaking.
No, the Etsy videos, I feel like at first they didn't have sound and now maybe they do have sound. Sometimes I will do text on them, especially if I'm like repurposing them from an Instagram video that has text on them. I'll be like, introducing the flower collection. These are, and especially if I have options, like I'll be like, you can get a stud back or you can get a dangle back or, whatever
Mm-hmm.
things that are important for people who are not reading. You want to make sure you're getting those like in your graphics and in the video. And so if it's something that I feel like needs text, I will add that. But I don't do video. I mean, I don't do sound. And as I scroll Etsy personally, I'm not listening to sound on videos.
Yeah, me either. So in terms of then taking that content, are you shooting new content when you're trying to promote them on Instagram or TikTok? And but are you doing this all at the same time, or like how does that kind of work?
So I am filming all the time, but not in an overwhelming way. I always want to tell people that, like, you can be filming content at all times, but not distracting from actually making. And so I just have like, one of the arms that goes over my workstation and films my desk. Sometimes I'll set it up, play with different angles, but for the most part, just, straight up and up from above is a great angle. And then once I finish a slab is what we call them in the polymer clay world, I might like kind of hold it up and take a video of it, sometimes. And then I do have like a set filming time or day whenever I need to upload something new to Etsy. So I will sit down and, take all my 10 photos and film those nice videos. And I'll go outside and film me wearing them. And then just as life happens, and I happen to be wearing a pair of earrings out to dinner, I will stop and take a little video or take a photo of myself. Or if I'm at a market and someone buys a pair of earrings, I say, hey, can I take a photo of you wearing them? And so I'll be able to kind of just like mix in things as time goes on. And so I just kind of build this library and I'm just putting in different clips at different times to be able to promote. So sometimes I might have an idea. Like yesterday, I had an idea for a reel I wanted to film for a pair of earrings that I've had for a long time. And so I filmed the reel really quickly and I'll share that. But sometimes I just am like, hey, I should promote this pair. And I just scroll through my camera roll and find anything that has those earrings in it. And I just string them all together.
Okay, that makes sense. So some limiting beliefs of why even in the past I haven't filmed my own UGC content, how I've hired it to other people. One is that my nails look terrible. Like I'm looking at right now as I'm talking in the podcast. I'm like, oh, how do I keep my fingers off the screen? Because I clearly haven't got my nails done in like 5 years. So there's that. And then there's like, okay, I have two little kids, so I never wear makeup. And I got my hair done Friday. I was going to film content after. And then when I got home, it was like chaos in the house. Like people were crying. I was trying to be on the computer and like it just wasn't going to happen. And I'm like, what a waste. And then I tried the next day and then the hair was kind of messed up when I slept on it. So, anyways, I feel like people might be able to relate to this. How do you you clearly are filming yourself. And in my mind, you gave us great quality content. I didn't think anything of it. Are you like prepping for this? Like, is this like, okay, I do this for a living, so I got to like get myself ready today and, make my hands look good? Or what do you, how does someone work through that in their brain?
Okay. Yeah, that is a great question. First, I will admit I have my grandmother's nails. I have fantastic nails.
Is that your
Like,
natural? Those are your natural
these are
nails.
just real nails that
If
need to
anyone's
be cut.
listening, they look fake. They look so good.
They are beautiful.
Okay.
I will admit that. But here's the thing. Again, I'm an artist. I like to paint my nails. I paint them. Everyone will be a different color. They might have a weird design on them, and then they chip off, and that is how they will look until they fully chip off. So if you look through my reels, you'll see some bad nails in there. And here's the thing I've realized too about like getting dressed, fixing your hair, all of that kind of stuff. People don't care. People truly want to see real life stuff. And so I have a lot of curly hair and I wear it up in a bun most days because it's just so much and it gets really dirty and I only wash it like once a week. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, my hair looks so greasy. I cannot take a photo. But then I'm like, I have to get this Etsy listing up. I've got to take the photo. And no one has ever said anything about my hair being dirty. Maybe they have thought it, but whatever, because I think the majority of people also have dirty hair today. So they're not judging you as much as you think they are. And it's one of those skills, the more you do it, the more you will be comfortable doing it. And so maybe post something of you with your hair up, while you're like running errands at Target and see, no one said anything. So, okay, I can do it again. And so it's a little bit of just building the skill, and it builds that like self confidence. And I just always remind myself, people aren't paying you as much attention as you think they are.
Totally. And I think it's just a very different movement because this is UGC. It's not like models.
Hmm.
So people want to, it's like all of us. Have you ever bought an outfit and you looked at the person and then it comes on you and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks nothing like
Yeah.
what I thought this shirt was going to look like, to be
Hmm.
honest, right? That's happened to me a lot.
Hmm.
And I think people appreciate, it's particularly on Etsy, which is supposed to be about the maker, and they appreciate like a real person on the other end. And we don't need these models. And in fact, like as a business owner, we could hire models. I mean, that was the biggest freedom to me when I was in my 20s, kind of like starting a business, realizing, oh, I don't have to like stress about beautifying myself or anything. I mean, if I ever need a model, I could just hire a model for my business. Like I don't need to
Hmm.
be my own model for my business. But now I feel like it's a whole different thing where
Hmm.
it's actually rebellion against that. People want real people, and
Hmm.
particularly on Etsy, they want to see real people, all different ages. They look all different. That's what's important. So come as you are on Etsy. That's how I kind of see it.
Right. And I think too, I know a lot of your people do printables, and they, lean into the stock photos, make it easy, do stuff with Photoshop or Canva, whatever. But I do think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't have at least one real photo of the item printed out on your desk, hands touching it, writing on it. Because as a shopper, that makes me be like, is this real? Is this like, what is this actually like in real life? And so, even if it's not a perfect photo, I need to see it in real life before I trust it. Like when you're shopping on like Amazon and you see a shirt and it's only a digital mock up of it, I'm like, I can't buy this because it doesn't look real. What is it
Mm-hmm.
actually going to look like when it comes? So I think that's really important for people to understand, as people are like, oh, but these photos are perfect because I've made them in Canva or in Photoshop. And it's like, but as the shopper, I need to know that it's real.
Do you have any tips? Because sometimes when I've done this, the printables, I don't want to say they looked bad, but they look like really thin and kind of see through. Like if you just print them on regular letter size, but then you don't want to over doll them up too much because then the customer will
Mm.
print them on regular white letter size thin paper and they'll be like, oh, this looks nothing like it. Do you have any thoughts on, I'm sure you've printed out a lot of printables at this point. Like, what are some tips on how you make them look better, look good enough?
That's a great question. And I think you can use a heavier, nicer cardstock to print them if you're worried about, it being too see-through on the desk. And I think people are not going to get upset about that. They know their paper quality. But I think it's about the background, kind of like the world you're creating. Like I think of it as a whole world. When I'm looking down at this shot, like what's in my camera lens, what would be here in a natural situation? My desk right now has two coffee cups, a broken pair of sunglasses, some art prints that need to be, uh, hung up, like, my desk, my pens, things like that. So I'm like, okay, what's really on a real person's desk? Now let's clean it up so it's not, the broken sunglasses can go, it's a little too cluttered. Um, and then good lighting. Lighting makes all of the difference. So make sure you are by a window so that you've got natural light. You can't film at night. That's just the hard truth about it. It's got to be daylight, and that's going to help make a big difference, especially with a printable, because you're going to get a lot of bounce with the light if you're using overhead lights or things like that on a piece of paper. And then you're going to get that weird shadow when you hold your phone over it to take the photo.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be in that natural light, and that's going to make the biggest difference when photographing those printables, because they are harder to photograph. And then think about your background. A thing that I like to do is get different colored pieces of cardstock, and you can get like the huge pieces. So like, one piece of cardstock, your printable is going to like cover it, but get like a really big piece and put that behind there, or a couple of them behind there, because it gives you more interest and like color pop, and it makes the printable look thicker.
Okay. I noticed that about your photos. I didn't know what was happening, but yeah, I definitely see that for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Okay, in terms of metrics, I mean, if you don't have any metrics, that's fine. One thing I can say is when we did use the challenge door thing that I was talking about earlier, like the 30-day printable challenge with you with the door, we ran an ad with that, and like it blew the other creative out of the water. So thank you for that. In terms of click through rate, but what can people get out of this? Like, do you have any stats from your own shop or a client shop where you're like, hey, like this is what you can get from investing in some photography or doing it yourself like this?
Yeah, well, the beautiful thing about Etsy now is that they have that click and share. What is that thing called?
Yeah, share and earn or something.
Yeah, yep, and share and save or something. And so
Mm-hmm.
I can look at my own stats at any point and say, wow, I've made an extra $50 this month because 17 people have clicked my link and bought through me versus through coming from Etsy. So I can see that number, going up, and each month that is working. Like, I know people are actually buying directly from me and not just from Etsy. So you can use that to track. And then, of course, ads. You can use your data from that, and you can test. So you can do one Etsy listing with only, produced items from Photoshop, and then you can do one that has UGC content in it and see which one convert. Everything else should be the same. Just do your different listing photos and see which one converts better. And so you can tell.
That makes sense, and that probably is less scary for someone who has an existing product that's doing really well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we like don't touch it if it's working, right?
Right, right.
So when you're saying you're sharing the share and save piece, you're posting it on Instagram. You're bringing your own customers from Instagram. That's what you mean,
Mm-hmm.
just to clarify for people.
Yep.
Okay, cool, awesome. So I think this is a good natural end to the podcast. But I do want to say, if anyone would love to learn more about you, Lauren, and everything that you do and offer, where can they find you?
Yep. So my website is Lauren the little symbol likes.com, because, like I said, I have done 1,000 different things and I kept naming my businesses stuff and then changing them. So I was like, you know what, Lauren likes, I can like anything that I want and do anything that I want. So Lauren likes social media, Lauren likes clay jewelry. They all kind of fall under that same brand. So lauren-likes.com, and you'll be able to find my artwork, my jewelry, and all my social media offerings there.
And it's funny because you started the podcast telling us about all of your different interests and history and online, and Lauren Likes is just so perfect for that, right?
Yep.
And who knows, maybe next year you'll be interested in something else. And I think a lot of us can relate to it, where we have a lot of passions, and if you're a more creative person, you just need to follow that and be true in your heart, to what you're interested in. So thank you, Lauren, for coming on today. This has been really educational for everyone, and for everyone listening, good luck if you're going to take your own pictures or work with a UGC photographer. Let me know what happens. Email us, team at goldcityventures.com, to let us know how it's going.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.